I do lie, I want no Diddy. Who's gonna storm me no Diddy?
Real life shit,
nigga,
yeah.
no Diddy gang, Meek Mill in real life. Don't ever disrespect me, you
Talk
heard?
that shit, Meek.
Something that's been on my mind recently and been a big topic of discussion here in the US is the Diddy sex scandal. It's another example of a powerful man in Hollywood taking advantage of that power to abuse those who have less of it, not unlike Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, or Jeffrey Epstein. However, what makes this case so unusual is the fact that not only did Diddy abuse women and children, but also men as well. This has led to a large outcry from men, particularly those in the Black community, against the former music mogul, creating the saying, "No Diddy," to mean no unwanted, generally homosexual, advances. However, when the response to one type of abuser who just targets primarily women and girls is silence, hesitancy, and a social split on the matter, and on the other hand, a swift and loud societal verdict of guilt when the abuser goes after not just boys but adult straight men, it creates an unspoken narrative of just who is supposed to be the victim in these cases and who you're not supposed to mess with. For example, when men say "no Diddy," it almost trivializes the nature of male-on-male assault, creating an underlying assertion that men are not supposed to be the victims of sexual assault, and rather asserts that assault against women is the correct norm. So while it's true that the Diddy case is something that should be paid attention to, it's wrong to make it salacious because of the homosexual activity present in the case. Because what that is saying, inadvertently, is that women's assault and women's stories do not really matter, and they're not anything important or outstanding or significant to take note of. It's also important to note that assault against women and children are things that are not sensationalized because in our society, they don't go against a patriarchal system that we've all been indoctrinated into. Systems which revolve heavily around the subjugation, domination, and control of women. Distinguished sociologist Heidi Hartman defines the patriarchy as relations between men which have a material base and which, though hierarchical, establish or create interdependence and solidarity among men, which enable them to dominate women. Now, because male homosexual relationships do not revolve in any way around the subjugation of women, they are in fact a major threat to the patriarchy and toxic forms of masculinity. Therefore, through homophobia and terms like sissy, mama's boy, four eyes, and metrosexual, the patriarchy seeks to keep men, both gay and straight, in line with the pre-approved version of hegemonic masculinity that seeks to keep men in an idealistic opposition to women's self-interest, but not their control. As American cultural anthropologist Gail Rubin wrote, the suppression of the homosexual component of human sexuality, and by corollary, the suppression of homosexuals, is a byproduct of the same system whose rules and relations oppress women. In this way, there's an implicit homophobia present in the saying "no Diddy," which colors all same-sex interactions as possibly predatory, is also linked to the same misogyny that pushes women in their stories to the background, while at the same time allowing men like Weinstein, Cosby, Epstein, and Kelly the honor of silently fading away from public memory. This is because to reference them or talk about them too often is to also imply that male-dominated power structures and those who lead them are synonymous with sexual assault, which unfortunately happens to be the case. It's also important to note that their crimes, while awful and heinous, do not in any way go against the male-dominated patriarchal systems of our society. That is to say that assaults against women and young girls, as well as young boys and gay men, are not seen as a threat against the patriarchy. It is only after someone goes after straight adult men that they've truly crossed the line. That is to say, someone's abused their power, but they've abused it incorrectly. Patriarchal power is only meant to be used against those who are not straight adult men. And ultimately, this just goes to show how patriarchal systems do in fact abuse men as well as women. Because the reality is that men are assaulted and abused every day. They are hazed and put in appropriate situations by not only gay men, but straight men and women as well. Remember, sexual abuse is often more about power than it is implicitly about sexuality. And because our society is built on female bodily subjugation, as we are seeing right now in regards to abortion rights in this country, we equate assault on bodies, especially sexual assault, with women. This does hurt female communities and children the most. Our male-dominated power structures are unconcerned with what happens to any victim of assault. The reality is that our current patriarchal systems truly benefit men while seeking to control the gendered and sexual expressions of men and the total autonomy of women completely. So in conclusion, I say to men in particular, we can say no Diddy, but can we still say no to all the other men who go around and abuse not only men, but women as well? When the abuser is a felon, 34 count felon, running for president? When are we going to be able to move that ball when that same perpetrator targets mainly women and girls? Because right now, from where I'm sitting, even though there have been multiple allegations against them, no one bats an eye. So far, it seems to me like if you go after certain people, you're okay. If there's enough evidence and enough people coming forward to show that you did in fact do this crime, we're all gonna stop messing with you, because unfortunately, I'm not living in that America right now, but I would like to be, instead of just America where if you go after men, then you're guilty. Yeah, I'm looking forward to living in that type of America. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.